Why are we meeting in here? It's cramped.
Well, Everton, we're meeting in here so that Rudy can participate.
It's cramped.
Does anyone else have a thought on that?
Cramped!
We will rule over all this land, and we will call it this land.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then after the baby is out, tighten it back up. Here! Ah!
Wait, what would it be like to speak? Robots don't breathe. That's a huge part of how we express ourselves.
The captain says you are a friend. I will not kill you.
Alan, you grew up in Plano, Texas, and you say you got into trouble easily, got out of trouble with humor. I'm glad you and I didn't go to school together because I believe they call that double trouble. Why do you describe that situation? What do you think attributes to the kind of the way that you were as a kid?
I wanted to be an actor, and that wasn't as important back then, or it didn't seem like something that was possible back then as much.
Here's the cool thing is that you, like so many people, you loved it. You won awards for it. You had affirmation that you were good at it, but you weren't quite sure. And so when you went off to college, you thought, maybe I'll be in hotel, motel management or something like that.
That's right. In Houston. I wanted to go to Houston. University of Houston has a great hotel, or at least back then, the great hotel management major. And I had a teacher at Plano Senior High, Charlotte English was her name, and she heard that I was going to be a hotel manager. And I was going to all kinds of out-of-school things. I was shadowing a manager at this local fancy hotel in town, and she said, "Oh, I hear you're going to be a hotel manager. That's a terrible idea." I was like, "No, you'll be able to make it." I'm like, "It's so hard. There's so many people better than me." I'm like, "No, you're better than them. You'll make it. You should do it." Like, just wouldn't let me say no. And then I listened to her and said, fine, and immediately broke that off and got a scholarship to a little school in East Texas that doesn't exist anymore called Lon Morris College at Jacksonville, Texas. And I was determined at that point.
By the way, U of H still has that great program. But yeah, you kept getting affirmation along the way. You got into this little school that people may have heard of, Juilliard, something like that?
Yeah, Juilliard. Yeah. I moved back to Dallas, and I realized I didn't really learn that much about acting in the little school that I went to. And I just kind of asked people, what's a good school to go to? They said SMU. And I was like, well, I don't want to stay in Texas. I want to either go to Los Angeles or New York. They said, oh, so like Juilliard. I said, okay. And I auditioned there. It was the only place I auditioned, and luckily got in.
You know, so many times we hear people say, stay in your lane. You didn't stay in your lane at all when it comes to this business. You may have been on the same road, but you experienced several lanes. You were on Broadway, which is a whole different, I think, kind of skill set. And then you did notable film roles as well. Patch Adams, I remember you in that. And just the other night, I saw Knocked Up, because somewhere around the world, whatever you start in is always running, right? And then there's the voice roles, and that to me is a whole nother skill set. Explain to us how difficult that can be, because you have this voice that's not really attached to anything at the moment, and you have to wait to see it all edited together.
Each one is a little bit different. I've done a lot of Disney movies.
Never mind. Now I've got a glitch to deal with thanks to you.
I played King Candy and Wreck-It Ralph. He's the villain. You don't know he's the villain in the beginning, but he turns out to be a very, very bad guy. And they're like, well, why don't you be in this other one called Frozen we're making? And so I was the Duke of Weselton in Frozen.
There she is! Stop her!
And then they said, this is going well. Why don't you just be something in all of them? You put your voice out there, and then they animate it, and then it comes back, and you see they've taken what you did and they've added to it. And sometimes you'll make just a noise or something. Like the King Candy always made little, he'd always sort of do things. He'd like just make sound. And then they would animate something going on in his environment that would make that noise make sense. So it's a fun back and forth.
This is awesome.
So now you're doing Resident Alien.
I'm an alien who crash lands on Earth, and I don't look like me. I look like this big, crazy 4 arms alien, big eyes. but he crash lands on Earth on his way to kill all of humanity. And luckily crash lands. He takes on the identity of Harry Vanderspiegel. So he has this camouflage where he can look like a human, but he has to learn how to walk and talk. And he watches a lot of Law and Order to figure out how to speak. And then he gets pulled into this small town in Colorado where he's been hiding out in this cabin, and they hear about him. He's a doctor, and they need somebody to do an autopsy on the local town doctor who was murdered. And so he gets pulled into this murder mystery in town. And meanwhile, he's trying to do his best version of a human and hopefully find his device so he can still complete his mission of killing all of humanity. And there's a lot of humor in it, even though he's out to kill everyone.
Well, it makes us ponder some of life's big questions, which kind of is what COVID forced us to do.
It's a lot about interconnectivity, about humans, because he takes on this body and he starts to feel feelings, human feelings. He dreams. That's something he had never done before, and so he's learning about humans through the town, the other characters in the town, and also by the experience of being human. And that's definitely something we've learned with COVID, is how connected we all are.
Speaking of lessons, I want to circle back around to what you said. I'm in this business because of a teacher who also stirred me in a different direction. And just the importance of our educators, the importance of people around you when you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life, just to ask people and see what they say.
That's so great. I agree. Charlotte English saved me years of just mistakes. Like, I immediately was able to get on the right road, and she saw me going in one direction, turned me. Whatever she saw, I don't know how she did it, but she just said, keep going that way.
And we're glad that you kept going that way. Alan, thank you very much for spending time with us this morning, and we look forward to Resident Alien.